Hello, Steph Granger here. Welcome back to another edition of the Just for Today podcast. Not gonna lie, feeling a little bit jet lagged this week, and I'm sure your heart bleeds for me, right? Because if you were watching any of my social media a couple of weeks ago, you would have seen that I was in Dubai, and I went there for a business retreat, and more specifically, Shelley Bosworth's business retreat. And this week's episode is my reflections on that, because I had quite an unveiling whilst I was there. And I wanted to share that with you because what I discovered whilst I was in Dubai is just how much my inner child was showing up when it came to my hopes and my dreams. Now, I went out with the intention to get to know this part of me a little bit better because yes, I've done a lot of work on my inner child, on little Steph. I've done lots and lots of work on her. But this work is never done. And as human beings, we're multi-layered, as are our inner children. So I wanted to work on my business. I wanted to really get into the business and understand what I wanted to achieve in 2024. But more specifically, understand if it's me, big old grown up Steph, that wants this, or if it's little Steph that wants this. It can be quite hard to make the distinction between the two. It really can. But I had a feeling that from previous work that I've done with her, that some of the goals for this year were hers and not mine to own. So let's get into it, shall we? On the first day of the retreat, we were asked a set of questions, really focusing in on what are you here to draw a line in the sand on? What are you here? And Shelley was asking us questions like, what's next? What is your, I'm going to look at my notes, and I don't usually do that when I'm reading, when I'm doing my podcast, but I wanted to reflect on my notes. What do I want for my life and my business? What matters? What impact does these things or this thing have to my life? What do I want and why? Those were the questions that I wrote down. There was a lot more, but those were the ones that really stood out for me. What do I want? And why do I want it? I'm just turning back the pages of my journal. And as Shelley was questioning, I was going deeper and deeper, and I could feel like this wave of emotion starting to really come up through my body. I could really feel this overwhelming sense of the need to escape, because I don't like being vulnerable in front of other people. I find it really difficult. Let's go back and say that again. I find it a real challenge to be vulnerable in front of other people. And the reason I find it a challenge is because for a long time I've learned to deal with my emotions by myself. For whatever reason that is, and I'm not going to go into massive detail about that, but I learned at a young age to process my own feelings in a way that made sense to me when I was 6, when I was 7. I always come back to the age 7 for me. So my urge, every part of me, my unconscious, my inner child was saying, get out of here, Steph. Get out of this room now, because this wave is coming. This wave of emotion is about to completely hit you, and you need to be in a safe space in order to be able to process that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think we should push through. No, I'm going to be vulnerable in public because it's safe. I don't believe that that's necessary to make progress. I did what I do when I have a tidal wave coming my way and I go to the sea. It's not lost on me that I run to the sea. And I was very fortunate. I was in a very privileged position that the villa we were staying in was a beachfront villa, and I was maybe 20 steps away from the sea. I grabbed my picture of little Steph and I ran. Well, I walked as fast as I could to the water. And as soon as my toes touched that water, the tears just started to fall. They just started to fall. It was the question of, there was somebody else in the room, and I do not want to break confidentiality here, and I will not, because what happened in Dubai stays in Dubai for others. I'm happy to share here. There was something that was said in the room, and I asked her a question based on what she was sharing, and it was a question that was for me as well. And I didn't realise it when it fell out of my mouth. The question was, who are you trying to prove this to? Who are you trying to prove yourself to? Or words like, are you still trying to convince somebody else of your worth? And I used those words to ask somebody else. And then a couple of people in the room all kind of had a bit of a, oh my God moment. And I really quickly realised that that question was for me as well. What am I doing and why am I doing it? And actually the question was, who am I doing it for? Not necessarily me. So as I walked very quickly to the sea and my toes touched the water, I got about, I don't even know. I got almost up to my knees, because I'm trying to remember it as well. It seems like a lifetime ago that this happened. And the tears started to fall, and I was feeling restrained in my throat because I've got so good at holding that emotion in, but I let it flow. And I had the picture of little Steph with me, and I held her close to my heart, and I let the feelings come out. And I kept saying to myself, it's okay to be uncomfortable. You are safe. You are loved. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. You are safe. You are loved. And when I could feel that it's subsiding, kind of the release, because I don't know about you, but when I experience emotion, it's almost like it's been stuck for a long period of time, that it almost comes out really hard, like it flies out of me, and it's almost suffocating. But when you let it pass and when you let it through, it calms itself and it becomes clearer and it becomes more tangible. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can see I'm moving my fingers now. I'm kind of doing it in the motion of putty, you know, when you start to work it and then it becomes manageable and shapeable, and you can hold it in your hands and actually do something with it. Once I'd kind of let that blockage out, I could then start to begin to understand what was showing up for me. And what I asked of myself and asked of my little self, my inner child, was, what do you want? What do you need? And she told me, for whatever reason, I felt at the time, I felt unseen. I felt undervalued. And even though I've done a lot of work on that wound, it's still very much there, and I'm going to assume it's going to be there for the rest of my life, because it was such a formative time. But the difference being is that I'm always working with it, and I'm always checking in with her and checking in with that feeling. And being completely honest, I called in my sister at that point. I called in my guides. I called in loved ones that I've lost, that I value opinion and support from. I asked for their hand holding as I moved through these uncomfortable and very necessary emotions. And as I say, once the blockage cleared itself, I could clearly see. It's like the fog cleared. It's like I could see much clearer. And actually some of the things I've been doing have not been for me. They've been to prove myself. Now, I'm going to say everything I do with authenticity. And I love the work I do. And I know I'm really bloody good at the work that I do. But I've been spreading myself very, very thin. I have been trying to reach so many people in so many different ways that it's been spreading me thin. I have been trying to meet the needs of others whilst not meeting the needs of myself. I have been chasing financial goals that I don't need to chase and actually don't want to chase. I have been placing massive pressure on myself to be seen and to be validated and to be seen as credible within my field. I don't need to do that. Little Steph needed me to do that. She needed external validation, or she thought she needed external validation. She doesn't. What she needs is validation from me, reassurance from me, grown up me that can parent her in a way that she needs in this moment, at this time, with what she's feeling and what she's experiencing. This comes from within. External things will never heal wounds, as far as I'm concerned. Going within and giving that child what was needed at the time, and loving and supporting in a way that was needed at the time, is the way forward, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm always going to prefix with this is that this is not me saying my parents did a shit job. Far from it, in fact. My parents did the best they could with the resources they had available to them. And sometimes that resource was fear. Sometimes that resource was girls need to be not even seen and not heard, or whatever the saying is, because actually being seen was the danger. Little girls need to behave a certain way to keep themselves safe. And I know where this fear is coming from. I know what led to this fear. I completely understand it. And I love my parents dearly. But as parents, I'm one as well. We often pass on beliefs that are ours to own and not our children's to take ownership of. And the validation I had been so desperately seeking as a little girl, without even realising it, was showing up in my adult life. And it was time for change. I realised that I was stretching myself thin. I'd had a really in-depth conversation with my husband a week before my birthday. We went out for afternoon tea. And, you know, we lived together. We were married for a number of years. We've been together for 16 years. But sometimes we don't get to have those conversations because life is so busy. And we turned our phones off and we were having afternoon tea. We sat for a couple of hours and we just talked and talked and talked. And he said a few things to me in those moments like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? He almost opened the door to me thinking about what I want for the future. And one thing he said to me is, you're filling all your time, but in the future you're going to have potentially grandchildren. And I know the grandmother, actually, I'll be Nanny Steph, just for the record. If that happens, there's no pressure on my children to have kids at all. One day it's going to happen, if it happens, and you're going to want to be present. And right now you're filling all of your time. Because I'm in I'm in the space where my children are all out working, and I have more time to myself, which is beautiful. I love it. But he's like, you're filling all of your time. And one day, maybe in the future, grandchildren will come along, and I know the type of nan you're going to want to be. We want to create more memories together. We want to go away on trips. We want to experience life together now as two adults without young children. And he said, the only pressure that's coming from that you're putting on yourself comes from you. There's no pressure for you to do any of this. Now, I love my work, and I will say this again. I do love my work. I'm really good at what I do. But I have been spreading myself too thin. And I have been doing it because little Steph needed validation, external validation. So what does all this mean? Well, on that beach, I made a decision. I made a decision to pull back. I wasn't sure how that was going to look, but I knew something had to change. I went back up into our villa where I was met by Shelley. And she said, are you okay? I said, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm fine. And I popped the picture of little Steph back into my journal, but it was just sitting on the top. And she said, I love that little picture of little Steph. And then I started crying all over again, really crying again. And she said to me, are you okay? I said, I feel extremely vulnerable, but I'm okay, because uncomfortable gives me clarity. And Shelley read out a quote to us during the third day. And it stuck with me, and I've written it down, and I'm going to put it somewhere to remind myself regularly, and I want to share it with you. When you create space to be, clarity emerges for you to see. I've never carved out as much time as I did in Dubai to work on myself and my business. And in order to do that, I needed to really get rid of all of the fog, you know, the fog that was in my way and that was blocking me making informed decisions. And I mean informed from a place of grown-up Steph, not little Steph. What do I really want? Me, grown-up me. Well, what I really want, I felt like bursting into, I'll tell you what I want. No, I'm not going to do that. Is to do the work I love in the way that I love to do it. Which looks like my podcast. I love this podcast. I love showing up every week and chatting to you. I love the feedback I get. I love the comments in the WhatsApp group that come when I release an episode every Monday morning. I love the ripple effect that the podcast has. Weeks after an episode goes out live, I still get messages. Wow, that really helped. Thank you for sharing that. I've always said if it changes or it helps one woman, then I'm doing my job. So the podcast is going to continue, and it's my priority now. It's an absolute priority. It started out as a little side thing. It's a bit of fun, a way for me to just, share my message. It's so much more than that now. And my one-to-one work is my absolutely most favourite thing to do. I love my workshops. I love Pause and Reconnect. I love doing online work. I love all of that, but it is spreading me too thin. It's overwhelming me, and it's putting a lot of pressure on myself. Now, I'm not going to say it's never coming back. It's just I'm hitting the pause right now, because I too have paused and reconnected. Did what I say on the tin, right? And for now, that looks like the Just for Today podcast and my one-to-one offering, and Steph in your pocket, of course, because that's one-to-one work as well. It means that I've hit pause button on everything else to see what I want to do next, to see where I want to go next. The main event this year is still happening, which is Disconnect to Reconnect, which if you aren't aware of, I will put a link in the show notes. This is an in-person event with 6 incredible female speakers joining me. That is absolutely still going ahead. I love being in communities of women, and I love being in a circle with women. And like I say, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen again this year. It just won't happen for now. Just for today, I am focusing on what I really want. Because you know what? We get one life. We really do. And I want my legacy when I'm gone to be that I was present in my life, that I was chasing things that made me happy, whether that was time with my kids, time with my husband, time with my clients, spending time on my podcast, and not chasing things that I believe or little Steph wants, because external stuff doesn't give you what you're looking for. I want my kids, I want my family, I want my clients to look and go, do you know what? She excelled at where she put her attention. So just for today, what I would like to leave you with is, I'd like you to think about those questions that Shelley asked us right at the start of the retreat. What do you want for your life? All areas of your life. What matters to you? How do those things impact your life? So ask your question, what do I want? And why do I want those things for my life? Because it may be that another part of you wants those things because she is seeking something, connection, validation, to be seen, to be heard. Think about what you're chasing and ask yourself, what do I really want for my life and why? Until next time.